Welcome, everyone. My name is Maria Margaglione. I'm the Programs Director here at the Depression and Bipolar Support Alliance. Today, we're going to learn how to build your social wellness. And in fact, we have a special guest with us, Dr. Stephen Hollon. Dr. Hollon has been one of the highest impact leaders in developing psychosocial treatments for persons affected with mental disorders. His research has not only demonstrated the effectiveness of psychosocial treatment, but has been disseminated and implemented around the world, positively affecting the lives of countless people affected by mood disorders. And Dr. Hollon is also a member of our scientific advisory board. So welcome, Dr. Hollon.
You're too kind. And please, Steve, for the webinar, if you would.
Today, what we're going to do is go over what social wellness is, why it's important, and how to take steps towards social wellness. So what is social wellness? Social wellness refers to the relationships we have and how we interact with others. So taking a closer look at relationships, maybe ask yourself, how do you feel about the way you relate to people in your life? Or do you feel fully connected to the community that surrounds you? And for community, that may mean people who live near you or your classmates or coworkers or others who share the same background or interests with you. Dr. Hollon, I wanted to ask, can you speak for a moment about the importance of relationships and quality connections?
Yes, certainly. We know that social relationships, the people you feel close to, the people you feel connected with, are just terribly important. They bring a great sense of value and meaning and purpose to life, and they just help you deal with tough times. They help you deal with tough situations. So it's clearly a major thing for human beings.
Mm. And for those living with depression or bipolar, how does living with a mood disorder affect creating and then nurturing those relationships?
Yeah, there's a tendency for people to withdraw from others that they know, that they care about, that they would typically interact with when they get depressed. And one of the things we've been learning is it's very important to try to keep your social contacts up to maintain those kinds of activities. So the general propensity is to withdraw, but you want to do everything you can not to withdraw and to maintain the contacts you have, and maybe even initiate more.
So maybe even if it feels a little challenging, putting the next step forward anyway and going to your meeting or a play with your friend, whatever it is, trying to keep those commitments.
Absolutely. Anything you would do if you weren't feeling depressed is a good thing to do when you are. Push yourself.
That's a very good point. That's a great point. And I'm going to use that again, and I'll have to give you royalties for saying that. So why is social wellness important?
Well, we do know, and there's considerable literature here, that if you get isolated, if you have a sense of loneliness, if you're not connected to other folks, it's just harder to maintain good mental health in those situations, hard to maintain your spirits. It also affects our physical health. The cardiovascular health and other health problems can be affected. So it's being tied in. We're a social species, and being tied in with other people just matters. Now, we know that loneliness can be associated with increased risk for certain mental health problems: depression, anxiety, low self-esteem, sleep problems, increased stress. So those are all things that none of us like. None of us want to get stuck in. It also has associations with various physical disorders. As you can see on the slide, diabetes, autoimmune disorders like rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, cardiovascular diseases like coronary heart disease, hypertension, obesity. There are a host of others on the slide, and I won't name them all, but in general, both your psychological mental health and your physical health is improved when you have connections to other people.
Can you talk a little bit about how that actually affects your physical body?
Yeah, we don't know. Well, we do know to some extent, and that is our body's wired up to respond in stressful situations or in other kinds of contexts, with arousal, with getting us ready to deal with things in a fight-flight manner. And connections with other people just takes the edge off of that. If you're in situations where there's no particular reason to be on edge, it's good to have contacts with others. It helps us relax. It helps us feel like part of a group. And it's just from infancy on, it's just a good thing to do.
Yeah, it's easier to handle challenges with somebody else than to feel like you're on an island alone.
That's a great point. Absolutely.
So other studies have shown that social support improves the ability to cope, alleviates the effects of emotional distress. It enhances self-esteem and promotes healthy lifestyles, behavior, and adherence to a treatment plan. So we talked about the first two. Can you talk about how this might affect someone's self-esteem?
Yeah. One of the things that's very helpful for self-esteem is to be focused on other people. The more we tend to focus on ourselves, the more we tend to pick up on perceived, sometimes even imagined flaws. And it's great just to get out of your head and get into the moment. And it really is helpful to be around someone else when you do that, other kind of folks. And in terms of promoting a healthy lifestyle, people are what Ellen Frank used to call social zeitgeibers. They regulate your life for you, if you will, meeting friends for coffee, going into work, having regular times that you spend with your kids or the playgrounds. That organizes, balances a lifestyle, and you get more out of your life when that happens.
Yeah. Yes. Getting out of your own head, that's incredibly important. So let's talk about taking steps towards social wellness. As we know, living with a mood disorder can make creating and maintaining social wellness challenging, but it is not impossible.
Harder, but not impossible. And you're
Not,
right.
yes, not impossible. So looking at the first thing, asking yourself what your ideal social life looks like. Some people need a lot of friends. Some people prefer more intimate friends. Do you want friends with similar experiences? Dr. Hollon, are there any other questions that people can be asking to help them define what social wellness looks like for them?
Yeah, I think in general, the thing you really want to look at is what's the pattern like for you when you're not feeling depressed or when you're not moving in with a bit of hypomania, and shoot for that. And the more we can regularize our life, there are different people like different things, as you indicate on the slide, and the more you can shoot for the kind of pattern that you'd have if you're not in a negative or overly positive affective state, it's a good thing to do.
And is there anything to do when you feel when even coming up with examples like that feel difficult?
Yeah, go to Starbucks.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing. It's the closest thing we have to pubs in the United States. You can always walk in. There will be certain people will be there at certain times of the day, and two or three times in, you get to know folks. You have conversations, and even the baristas are regulars. There's one
Yeah.
place you can always go.
Yeah. Yeah. So getting out of your apartment or your house, or
Mhm.
just going somewhere where other people.
Yep, yep, yep.
Assessing your current social network, who is a part of your social support system. Does your current social network support your wellness goals? Do you need to form new relationships? Are there any other questions folks can ask themselves to assess their current level of social wellness? Sometimes we don't always have a good awareness of that.
Yeah, yeah. And again, there are some useful things there. If mood is lower, pay real attention to whether or not you've been cutting back on things and not doing things you typically would. And again, it's as we've talked about, it's harder to do, but anything you do, don't wait to feel like doing something. Get yourself to do the stuff anyway, and the motivation will follow. If you're moving more in a positive affective direction, a little bit of hypomania, mania coming in, be aware that other people may not be as enthusiastic about what you're enthusiastic about, and cut them some slack. Have the conversation anyway, and don't be surprised if they don't quite get it, but just have a conversation anyway.
Well, what I'm really hearing here is to be present and be mindful of what is going on. So if I don't notice somebody else is not as interested, or I'm, is speaking too much or whatever, if I'm not present with the other person. So that's very helpful.
That's a great summary. Great way to put that.
Okay, so keeping a balance, and you started to talk about this this past slide, but overextending or exhausting yourself with too much interaction can trigger symptoms. So setting boundaries for yourself and accepting boundaries from others, what we just spoke about, and the decision to disclose your diagnosis. Can you talk about mutually supportive relationships, or how do we set those boundaries and respect others?
Yeah, usually in any good relationship, you kind of feel your way in, and the other party feels his or her way in. So you kind of take the next step in if the other person reciprocated, and you get that little bit of dance going on, and that holds for friends, co-workers, children, etc. So play it by ear. Don't feel like you have to go total disclosure right off the bat, but feel your way to let folks know what's going on. And the other thing is, I mean, feel free to let folks know what's going on if you want to. The other thing, particularly if somebody gets depressed, there's a tendency uh, for other people to want to be helpful, which is great, but that's a burden for them. It's no problem letting them know if you're depressed or whatever the situation may be, but don't expect them to do anything other than be a friend and be a colleague, be a coworker, what have you.
Yeah, well, expectations is a huge point. But also being able to ask for help is important. Someone may be willing to do that, but again, the expectations of they may not be able to. They may not be in a space that they can do that. And so, yeah, those are great points.
That's absolutely right. Yeah.
Okay, finding support. So support groups can give you the venue to connect with others. And then there's talk therapy, for example, cognitive behavioral, family focused, can help with some of the family ties, and interpersonal and social rhythm therapy. We know that cognitive behavioral is your area of study. Do you want to talk a little bit about why cognitive behavioral or any talk therapies can help with social wellness?
Absolutely. Let me go back for a minute to the support groups. One of the things we know from our studies is that the majority of the benefit people get from seeing a therapist, they get from for non-specific reasons. So again, it's the contact, it's the having people that you can talk with, relate to, etc. And our experience has been support groups are going to give you a big chunk of that. So that's a terribly important and valuable kind of thing. And you may well find that you get everything you need out of the support groups without necessarily having to go into formal therapy. Once you go into the formal therapies, they're very effective. And the three that you list there are three of the most useful and efficacious. They're probably not the only useful and efficacious psychotherapies. Cognitive behavior therapy really focuses it on helping people do two things. Number one is when in doubt, do. That's the principle we talked about earlier. Don't wait to feel like it. Go ahead and do that. And the second thing is don't believe everything you think. Sometimes we get down on ourselves or we get high on ourselves, and it's good to learn to check that out. And that's what cognitive behavior therapy does. The family focused therapies are marvelous there as well, particularly if you're enmeshed in family issues and you're dealing with those kinds of aspects. Because what you learn to do in family focused therapy is to not put too much pressure on the individual that has the mood problems, and at the same time to normalize the relationship there. It's a very effective intervention that's got good data behind it. And then interpersonal social rhythm therapies also are about as efficacious as any kind of psychotherapy that we know, and they often improve the quality of relationships on top of that. And particularly if you're in the bipolar spectrum, the social rhythm therapy is particularly important. The thing you want to do is have a regular lifestyle, and anything that kind of bumps you off regularity is sometimes a little tougher to handle.
Yeah, that one is truly about structure and setting up the best possible outcomes when you have a good sleep, eating routine.
Yep,
And
yep,
I
yep.
would say could include meeting friends for coffee being a regular thing.
Absolutely. And one of the things that research in the last decade or so has shown that we wouldn't have anticipated before is that usually if depression's related to life events, related to negative life events, things that don't go well, breaking up a relationship, losing a job, not getting, etc. Hypomania and mania often are related to positive things that we're striving for, that we succeed at. So if you're in the process of doing something, you're going to graduate, get something that you really wanted for a while, that's a particularly important time to regulate your social rhythms, particularly important time to get your sleep and other kind of things, because sometimes we can spin too far off of center in a positive direction. That's usually a good thing to avoid as well.
Let's go through some of the resources DBSA has to offer to help you find social wellness. Social wellness is part of the overall DBSA Wellness Wheel. This Wellness Wheel is a holistic tool that looks at 7 key areas of wellness: physical, spiritual, environmental, occupational, intellectual, financial, and as we've been discussing, social. The wellness wheel concept has been widely used by mental health experts as a tool for recovery. So DBSA adapted the wellness wheel to address the needs of people living with depression and bipolar disorder. This wellness wheel is free. It's downloadable PDF. And by using it, you'll be able to assess your strengths and areas of growth with these tools. Information on key areas of wellness and an assessment tool to help you see where you are in each area. Worksheets to help you explore each area of the wheel in more depth. Additional journal prompts to dive in even further. And then we have a goal planner and tracker that comes along with it. And support groups. Support groups are mainly held online at this time because of COVID, and that's on the local and national level. Our support groups are led by peers, which means that the person guiding the meeting knows firsthand what it's like to live with a mood disorder. In addition to our general support groups, we offer specialized groups for young adults, military veterans from all branches, people of color, groups for DBSA friends and family supporting loved ones with the mood disorder, people with co-occurring diagnosis of substance use and mood disorders. And coming this July, we're very excited to say that we will be adding support groups for teens and then parents and caregivers of children who live with the mood disorder. That is it for today. Steve, did you have any closing thoughts?
Oh, just to reinforce the notion that maintaining social wellness is incredibly important. It's very helpful. You can do a lot of self-care for yourself, and the support groups are a particularly useful way to get tied in with other folks if you don't have ready access.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. There's a lot of short amount of time, but there's some good information on achieving social wellness and how it can help your overall physical, we figured out, and mental health. So thank you so much.
Pleasure, and delighted to be invited. Thank you now.